For a series like this, for it to happen, so what is your inspiration first, and then tell us some of the things that need to happen in order for a series like this to happen. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a great question, Fernando. For a series like this to happen, well, let's start with this: is that this is our third Legends of Hockey series that we've done. The first one was in 1996, Legends of Hockey, and then we had Legends 2 in year 2000, which and then 22 years later we have Legends of Hockey Greatness Calling. All the series was created by Derek Murray, founder of Network Entertainment, and he's was also the executive producer, everything. And he's the one that was the vision behind this. And Jeff Denemy from the Hockey Hall of Fame, the president of the Hockey Hall of Fame, Jeff was the driving force that he's been part of the Legends brand since its infancy back in the 90s as well. So without those two, without Jeff and without Derek, this does not happen. And the inspiration of it, actually, Derek Murray was a prolific photographer in Vancouver, and who had a great love for the game of hockey and a great love for film. And what he did was it was his first film project was Legends of Hockey. So he said, all right, well, if we're going to start my career off in the world of film, I'll start it off with something that I'm passionate about. And he had the Legends of Hockey books that he did for the Hockey Hall of Fame back in the mid 90s, and then launched the TV series. And it's been an amazing, unique brand of storytelling that Derek also created. And that's really the inspiration and the idea behind the series. And those, as I said, it takes two people like that, a visionary and someone that believes in that, and that being Jeff Denemy at the Hockey Hall of Fame, to make this happen. And also, it's it's the cooperation of the players. They players, and even just a multitude of things have to happen. From players, sponsors, the Hockey Hall of Fame broadcasters. It's a true team effort all the way, just like a hockey team.
So in terms of producing such a series, I know for other formats like such, let's say film, producing a film, you have to do certain things, scout locations and such, figure out the budget. But for a series such as this, can you briefly explain your sort of role and what you needed to do in order for this to launch?
Well, from beginning to end, I'm involved with the project. Prior to shooting our interviews, we have to do research on the players' backgrounds, and come up with biographic information for them. We have to source photography and footage. And then, of course, before we roll cameras, we got to, reach out to the players, to see if they're into it or not. And thankfully, it was an overwhelming response, and they all embraced it and quickly. And Kelly Massey from the Hockey Hall of Fame, she's the the liaison between the hall and the players and us, and did a fantastic job in making that all happen. So there's a multitude of things that need to take place before we roll the cameras, and then getting out on the road as we did back in the summer of 2021. We during COVID, which was an interesting time to be traveling around North America, particularly. We went everywhere, New York to LA, St. Louis, Dallas, Texas, a couple of times, Boston, Detroit, Montreal, Quebec City, Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver, Seattle, Scottsdale, Arizona. It was quite the odyssey, the travel experience. And fortunately, Fernando, we didn't have any real hiccups or anything like that. We had a couple of COVID preemptions, but that was but beyond that, we made our way around, and then of course over to this past spring summer, we were in Europe, in the Czech Republic, Czechia, and in Sweden, and yeah, it was 15 months of traveling around, interviewing, the greatest hockey players, of their generation. So there's that. Now it's it has been putting it all together, and we've had obviously a couple of episodes, 3 that have aired already, and we got 7 more to go. So nice. It's quite an ambitious project, and a very rewarding one, and it's an extreme privilege and honor to work on it.
So tell us, I've always for filmmakers or producers like yourself, going through archives is such a wonderful journey. So getting the footage of the Edmonton Oilers from CBC, or the Leafs during when they were on CHCH, and grabbing that footage, and tell us what that was like and how nostalgic that can actually be, as compared to as to what it is to today. You know what I mean? Like, where hockey is like almost 24 hours.
Yeah, well, the role that I have on this one is I have multiple roles, and that footage and photography aspect is one of them, and that I actually was very involved with on the previous series back in 2000. The interesting thing with footage, particularly from the era of players that we were featuring here in the earlier episodes, is that it's from that video era. Of the late 1970s and 80s. So it's a real challenge to find, that those, I guess from a quality perspective. And when you find something, fantastic that's shot on film, like the Edmonton Oilers, from the mid 1980s, and it's on film, and you're looking at it and you're like, wow, this is amazing. Slow motion type NFL films style footage is spectacular. And then I have to say that we to speak to Boreas Salming, who's mentioned by a few of the players from Sweden that appear in our series, Nick Lidstrom and Matt Sundin. We unearthed some real nice film footage of Borea that we used in Matt's story, just a clip of him at Maple Leaf Gardens back in the 1970s that was shot on film. So you see these things like you go into the Saskatchewan archives, and and I'm like going, where is this? I need to find some Clark Gillies footage from the 1970s of him playing for the Regina Pats. And they're like, well, we don't have anything listed. So I'm going through, looking at various files, and then I see Regina Pats 1974 highlights, Pats versus the Saskatoon Blades, and I'm like, perfect. Bernie Federko's in the same episode. They would have played that game. And then there it is, this black and white, footage, raw footage of them playing against each other in junior. So those are the moments that, you really, as you say, you're on this treasure hunt. And it's very rewarding when you have those finds.
Mm-hmm. What would you say, aside from COVID and trying to find archives, what would be another challenge that you overcame during this whole process of making this series?
Well, I don't know if it's something we've overcome yet, but it's actually, when their interviews are so rich with what the players are telling us, that is the biggest challenge, because they say so much and they have so many good stories, and to try to capsulize everything in a 6-7 minute vignette that is probably the hardest work that we have to do, because we're like, well, we've got all these great stories and we only have time for so much. So it's just, the typical, situation that a lot of, filmmakers and documentary producers, face, is that we've got so much great content. What do we leave out, in this? And when the interviews with the players tend to be 2 to 3 hours, in some cases, and they're, you know, pouring out their heart and soul and giving you their life story and the things that mean the most to them. You just that is the you know, the biggest challenge that we face.
Mhm. So tell us, this is a little bit of a fun question, but why is that shot or that footage scene of Wayne Gretzky coming down the line against the Calgary Flames and just burying that goal? And I believe that's from the top of the circle. And I'm thinking that's against Mike Vernon, if I'm not mistaken.
You're correct.
Why is that still one of the most epic moments of hockey today?
Well, that's a good question, because I don't know. I mean, I remember it because I watched the game like in real time, but I think it's because of the drama of that rivalry between the Calgary Flames and the Edmonton Oilers, which, you know, we highlight that in the Fiery Road to Greatness, which is the first episode of the series. And things just were so intense, you know, between the two teams. The way that he scored that goal with authority and a slap shot like that in Calgary in a hostile environment. I think those are the things that make it so special. And hey, it's Wayne Gretzky, you know, the greatest player who you know, could be, you know, to ever live. I mean, Brett Hull said to us in his interview that he said Wayne Gretzky is the game.
Nice. So tell us, so what did you, I know this is the third part of the anthology of this series, but was there something that you learned about yourself as a producer when doing this series afterwards?
It's a good question. Something I learned of myself. I think that, you know, it was, you know, for me, it was where, you know, where I'm at in my life, and talking to these players that are the same age or just a little bit older than me, and how, you know, it was more of something you learn as a person than maybe professionally. I mean, there's all sorts of things professionally that you learn, you know, in any project. I mean, as you know.
Yeah.
But I think my you know, my biggest takeaway was just you know, where it was the experiences that they're having and the experiences that, you know, that I'm having is they're sort of similar, and it made it actually really special because we connected in a way that you know, that just two people would, you know, of the same generation. Like, you know, it's just like, you know, growing up at the same time, you know, and life experiences and everything. So it made for conversations that, you know, you would be taken away in an interview, and all of a sudden, you know, 90 minutes or 2 hours have gone by just like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was the special, you know, aspect of it. And you know, it's quite, you know, quite compelling, actually.
I just wanted to make a comment, that little part of Al McInnes, you know, that you focused on. It was always like when I was a kid growing up, we would always play street hockey, and I would always be defenseman, and we'd go out there and we'd have our tennis balls for street hockey, and I would always pretend to be like Al McInnes. Oh, here comes a shot! It's great, but it's like it's such a hockey was such a big influence back in the day. But I want you to tell us, tell the our viewers here on FERNTV, or what can they expect, and would you like to tell them when they watch the series, of course.
Well, it's an intimate portrait of the lives of, you know, the greatest players of this, you know, past, you know, generation, you know, from the Hall of Fame classes of 2000 to 2020. And I think you know what it is. It's a real, like, personal. It's a personal journey. It's not just the you know, the you know, the statistics and whatnot. It's more about them and who shaped their lives and had the, you know, and what means a lot, you know, to them on that, you know, on that special journey that has actually, you know, that's taken them to, you know, to greatness. And I think that's what that would be what we're looking for as far as the takeaway from the viewer, is that it's an intimate portrait, into the lives of their heroes.
Mhm.
And it's not your everyday kind of, after the game type of scenario where they're talking about what happened in the game. They're talking about just their lives, and I think that's really the takeaway for us, is we want to show you that sort of inside look, at their lives. And that was the direction of the interviews. We know what they did, and that's why they're there. But
Mhm.
what got you there, and what events, the events that took place that really changed their lives and the lives of many who watched them.